All right, let's step into a world of shadow and stone, a place of haunted minds and hidden chambers. Today, we're deconstructing Gothic fiction. We're going to explore the very architecture of fear itself.
You know, it all really boils down to one simple but pretty fascinating question. Why are we so drawn to fear? I mean, why do we seek out stories that make our hearts pound? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is kind of locked away in the very foundations of the Gothic genre.
When you think Gothic, you probably picture something just like this, right? These huge, crumbling castles sitting up on a hill against a stormy sky. It's iconic, almost a cliché at this point.
And of course, what's inside those castles? Oh yeah, hidden secrets, secret passageways, forbidden rooms, and these deep, dark family histories just dripping with tragedy.
You can almost hear the ghostly whispers echoing down the halls. But what if I told you all these spooky things aren't just there for a cheap scare? What are they really trying to tell us? Okay, let's get into it.
To really get the Gothic, we've got to go back to where it all started. And it wasn't so much an invention as it was a rebellion, one that was staged entirely in the dark.
So our story kicks off way back in 1764 with a book called The Castle of Otranto. The author, Horace Walpole, he actually called it a Gothic story, and man, did that name stick. But what's really wild is the world this book was born into. This was the late 18th century, the absolute peak of the Enlightenment, an age all about reason, logic, and scientific order. Gothic fiction was basically the total opposite. It was a rebellion that celebrated everything that the Age of Reason was trying to push down.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The Enlightenment was all about reason. The Gothic was all about intense, raw emotion. Society wanted order. The Gothic gave them chaos. It was this powerful literary movement that gave a voice to instinct, to passion, to madness, and to fear. You know, all the messy, irrational parts of what it means to be human.
But the thing is, the Gothic didn't just stay in those old medieval castles. Nope. As the world changed, its monsters changed right along with it. They evolved, from ghosts in the attic to something born in a laboratory.
See, by 1818, we're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, and a whole new kind of fear is starting to creep in. Mary Shelley captured it perfectly with Frankenstein. The terror here wasn't some supernatural spirit anymore. No, this was scientific horror. This was a monster born from a lab.
Shelley even gave her novel a subtitle, The Modern Prometheus, and that was a huge deal. It's a direct reference to the Greek myth about the guy who stole fire from the gods, who reached too far and was punished horribly for it. Frankenstein's monster, well, it's the ultimate symbol of that exact same dangerous ambition.
So you see, Frankenstein's monster wasn't just a monster. It was basically a walking, talking symbol for all the new anxieties of the industrial age. The fear of what happens when we misuse knowledge, the dangers of science without limits, and the terrifying responsibility for the things we create. Okay, let's fast forward to the end of the Victorian era. It's 1897, and Bram Stoker unleashes a brand new kind of monster. This one didn't stay in some remote castle. It came right into the heart of modern London.
Dracula was so much more than just a vampire. He was a perfect vessel for everything that terrified Victorian society. He was the fear of the foreigner coming to corrupt England. He was repressed sexuality bursting out in a culture that tried to keep a lid on it. And he even represented anxieties about how diseases spread. The monster had adapted yet again.
So we've had ghosts, we've had monsters from labs, we've had vampires in the big city. But this brings us to the real core of it all, the psychology behind everything. It's time to unlock the secret rooms of the Gothic mind.
Because at the end of the day, the castles and the monsters, they're just symbols. The real question we have to ask is, what do they actually represent? What darkness are they really reflecting back at us?
And the answer really lies in this idea that Sigmund Freud would later call the return of the repressed. It's this theory that all the desires, the fears, the urges that society tells us are wrong, they don't just vanish when we push them down. Oh no, they fester in the dark, and eventually they come roaring back, usually as a monster. This right here, this is the engine that drives Gothic fiction. Honestly, this slide is the key to the whole thing. That crumbling castle, it's not just a building,
It's a metaphor for a troubled mind, full of dark corners and secret passages. Frankenstein's monster? That's the dark side of our own ambition, the consequence of our creation. The vampire is forbidden desire, plain and simple. And the ghost? Well, that's just unresolved guilt, a past trauma that refuses to stay buried.
And you should make no mistake about it. This way of telling stories is far from dead. The Gothic didn't die, it just changed its address. And its influence is still haunting our culture to this very day.
Just think about it. Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, with that oppressive mansion and all the psychological torment. Or Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, where the horror is literally coming from inside the main character's mind. Stephen King? The man built his entire career on these foundations. And modern films and TV shows like Crimson Peak or Penny Dreadful? That's just pure, uncut Gothic for a whole new generation. So why? Why does a genre that started in the 1700s still have such a powerful grip on us? What's the big takeaway here? Well, it's all about the darkness that every single one of us carries around inside.
Because Gothic fiction, it never stops asking these huge, uncomfortable questions. It forces us to look at what happens when our ambition goes way too far. It makes us wonder what our nightmares are really trying to tell us about ourselves. And it makes us think about the profound, sometimes terrifying truths that only come out when we're really, truly afraid.
And that, in the end, is its real power. It reminds us that fear isn't just something to run away from. Sometimes it's a key that can unlock the hidden parts of ourselves, because the human mind, just like a Gothic mansion, is full of rooms we have yet to open. And what we find inside, well, that might just be the most terrifying and the most revealing story of all.